Namaste, bitches. Welcome to another installment of Dumb Woke. Today, I'm going to be talking about, something that I like to utilize on kind of a day-to-day basis, which is this notion or this idea of seeing every person that you interact with as your teacher or as your guru, right? For another term. And essentially, what that does is it changes our perception of individuals that we might be angry toward or that we might hold a resentment toward or things of that nature or people that may even trigger us. We suddenly change this perception of seeing them as kind of a villain in our life and a villain in our narrative, in our stories, and see them as actually pivotal moments for us, for us to grow, for us to learn, for us to prosper, and things of that nature. I guess it's similar to some of the things that I talked about in a previous video of where I said that suffering is necessary until it isn't, and one of the things that made me think about this is something that happened to me when I was younger. I remember I was like in grade 6 or grade 7, and I was walking home from school with one of my homies, and I don't remember what the context of the conversation was. I just remember in the middle of the conversation, I looked over at him and I just said, yo, fuck my life, right? And we hear that phrase all the time, FML, right? Fuck my life. And I remember saying it out loud, and some guy that was, walking towards us heard me say, he never heard the conversation, he just heard me say that line. And I just remember him walking past me, and he turned around and he's like, yo, what the fuck did you just say? And and I didn't say anything back, but he was cheesed, and he looked at me and he's like, don't ever say that shit again. And then he just walked away. And in that moment, I was kind of caught off guard, because I'm like, yo, this guy doesn't even know me. And a part of me was like, I didn't quite understand why he was so upset. Until this day, I could be wrong. Maybe he misinterpreted what he heard. But what I took from that conversation was, I took a second to reflect and think about what had happened, and till this day, I've never used that phrase ever again, just because of that small interaction. Because what I took away from it was this notion of there are an extensive amount of things that I can tell you that life has brought me and life has gifted to me, right? The relationships that I hold dear to me, the fact that I have a bed to sleep in every night, the fact that I have shelter over my head, I never have to worry about having food on my plate, etc., right? And for me to go and curse those things and curse my life and see it as all bad, or this somehow, this burden that I have to carry with me is one of the greatest detriments that I could have done to myself. And I think if it wasn't for that person reacting in the way that did, I don't know if I would have come to that realization, and maybe I would have, but I definitely think that was a pivotal moment. And that's just one small example that I can think of, But obviously there's people in our lives that we look up to, people that we may see as our support systems, or people that may have guided us through difficult situations. But what I wanted to talk about was specifically those individuals that might trigger something within us, right? People that might cause us to feel angry, or people that may overstep their boundaries with us. And, even those individuals can be our greatest teachers, right? They can be even our gurus, right? And one of the quotes that I always think about is something that one of our first gurus told us, Guru Nanak Dev Ji. What he said was, I am not good, but no one is bad, right? And it's such a simple thing to say, right? He's not saying that he himself is bad or an ill person, but he's also not saying that he's holier than thou, right? Everyone has the capability to teach you something, and we all have the capability of learning something from someone else, even if that's, learning from their mistakes, seeing how their anger could have gotten them in trouble, or seeing how certain actions that they took, and the consequences that they breed, right? Just learning from other people's mistakes even can be our greatest teacher, and sometimes those lessons are things that we may learn eventually later on in life, or they might be things that are instantaneous, right? But whatever the case is, once we start to look at people from a lens of what can this person show me, or what is this person allowing me to uncover for myself, right? Seeing others as our mirror rather than our enemy, or someone that we have to confront, and things of that nature, it shifts our view of the world as well, because then we start to realize that things, and this is something that I say all the time, is that things are happening for us and never to us, and obviously those things can be very difficult, and sometimes those lessons, like I know many people, or many of us, may have been brought up in a household where sometimes our parents may not have been the greatest support systems, or some individuals may not have the healthiest relationships with their father or with their mother, or whoever the case is. And sometimes the one lesson that they could have granted you, or one thing they could have showed you, was the experience of life itself, right? If we can't find something specific, it could be the smallest things. The fact that they were able to give me the gift of life, something as small as that. And one of the most powerful things, I think, of what this is, of an example of what this was this video that I saw of this young woman who was in a courtroom, and she was face to face with the person who murdered her son, right? She was literally in front of this dude's face, of the person that took away her son's life, and he was on the stand, and he was being sentenced to prison, and wherever the case is. And she started crying, but she wasn't just crying to mourn the death of her son. She was crying because she saw this individual being punished and being sent to jail, and she actually walked up to him and gave him a hug. And when she was asked why, she said because that child that was on the stand was the same age as my son. And she said, my son could have easily been him if he was granted the circumstances and the experiences of life that he was given. And she said, when I saw that child on the stand, I didn't see a murderer. I saw someone who was hurt. I saw someone who's dealing with an immense amount of anguish, and someone who may have been dealing with a loss of love, or whatever the case is. And it takes an immense amount of cruelty for someone to endure in order for them to take the action that he did. And I'm not saying we all have to do that, or behave the way this woman behaved, because personally I don't even think I would have the strength to do what she did. But seeing that, it was like, to me, that was the greatest example of what forgiveness looks like, because that is to put someone in such a harsh position and still not let it phase your view of what it means to live in a world full of love and compassion and empathy, and still extend that towards someone who has done, who may have been the cause of the greatest amount of pain for you. I think is incredible, and she chose in that moment to see the teaching that person could have granted them, or the teaching that life could have granted them through this child, through this person. And to me, that was it was incredibly powerful. So again, try to find the mirror, or try to see others as your mirror, and see what it is they're trying to mirror onto you. Let life be your guide, and let other people also teach in ways that they know how to teach. That's basically it for this episode. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Again, if you guys have any thoughts, questions, concerns, or things you would like to add, things you agreed with, you disagreed with, please leave it in the comments below. I love y'all. I appreciate y'all. Hope you guys have a blessed day. Peace and love, baby. Namaste, bitches.